The wind screamed across the ice planet like a monster with 1,000 voices. Hen Wu pulled his thick coat tighter around his body as he stepped out of the mining station. The cold hit him like a punch to the face. Snow flew everywhere, making it hard to see even 10 feet ahead. "Damn storm," he said to himself, his breath turning into white clouds in the freezing air. The mining station sat alone on the frozen planet called Valdra 7. It was a small place, built to dig valuable metals from deep under the ice. Most of the work was done by machines, but someone had to fix things when they broke. That someone was Hyan-Wu. He was 28 years old, with strong hands that knew how to fix anything. His black hair was always messy from working under machines all day. He had been alone on this planet for 6 months now. The company sent supplies every few weeks, but mostly it was just him, the machines, and the endless white ice. Tonight was different. The storm was the worst he had ever seen. The wind was so strong it knocked him sideways as he walked. The power had gone out an hour ago. All the machines stopped working. The heaters stopped too. If he didn't fix the emergency generator, soon he would freeze to death. Hyan-Wu carried his toolbox in one hand and a flashlight in the other. The light barely cut through the swirling snow. He had to stop every few steps to catch his breath. The cold made his lungs hurt. The emergency generator was in a small building 50 feet from the main station. It felt like 50 miles in this storm. Hyan-Wu put his head down and pushed forward. Each step was a fight against the wind. Something crashed nearby. The sound was loud even over the screaming wind. It wasn't a normal sound of metal hitting metal. This was different, bigger, heavier. Hyan-Wu stopped and looked around. His flashlight beam moved back and forth across the snow. At first he saw nothing but white. Then the light hit something dark and twisted. It was metal, but not from his station. The pieces were scattered across the ice like broken toys. Some parts were still smoking, melting the snow around them. It looked like a small ship had crashed. What the hell? Han-Wu said. He knew he should go fix the generator first. The station needed power. But something made him walk toward the crashed ship instead. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the hope that he wasn't alone on this frozen rock after all. The ship was small, maybe the size of a car. It was broken into many pieces. The metal was black and smooth, not like anything humans made. Strange symbols were carved into some of the pieces. They glowed with a soft blue light that was already starting to fade. Hyan-Wu moved his light over the wreckage. Most of it was just twisted metal and broken parts. But then he saw something that made his heart stop. Near the biggest piece of the ship, almost hidden under a sheet of metal, something was moving. It was small and weak, but it was alive. Hyan-Wu dropped his toolbox and ran over. He lifted the metal sheet carefully. Underneath, huddled together for warmth, were 2 small creatures. They looked like tiny dragons from old Earth stories. They were white as snow, with scales that seemed to glow in the dark. Their eyes were closed, but they were breathing. Just barely. They were no bigger than his fist, and they were freezing to death. "Oh no," Hyan-Wu whispered. "You poor little things." He knew he should leave them. The company had strict rules about alien life forms. If they found out he had contact with aliens, he would lose his job. Maybe worse. The company didn't like surprises, but looking at the tiny creatures, Hyan-Wu couldn't just walk away. They were babies. They were dying. They needed help. One of the little dragons opened its eyes. They were silver, like stars. It looked right at Han-Wu and made a soft sound, like a kitten crying. The sound broke his heart. "Okay," he said. "Okay. I'll help you." Han-Wu took off his coat and wrapped the 2 baby dragons in it. They were so cold they felt like ice. He could feel their tiny hearts beating fast and weak. He had to get them warm and fast. The wind pushed against him as he ran back to the station. He had to stop twice to make sure the dragons were still breathing. Each time, he was afraid they had died in his arms. Inside the station, it was almost as cold as outside. The heaters were off and the walls were starting to freeze. But at least there was no wine. Hyan-Wu ran to his bedroom and put the dragons on his bed. He covered them with every blanket he had. Then he remembered the generator. Without power, they would all freeze. He grabbed his tools and ran back outside. The storm was getting worse. The wind was so strong it lifted him off his feet twice. But he made it to the generator building. The problem was simple. Ice had gotten into the fuel line and blocked it. Hyun-woo's fingers were so cold he could barely hold his tools. But he worked fast, clearing the ice and checking the connections. The generator coughed to life. Lights came on in the station. The heaters started working again. Hyun-woo ran back. Inside, the dragons were still alive, but they were very weak. He could see their ribs through their thin skin. They needed food and warmth. He didn't know what baby dragons ate, but he had to try something. He mixed some protein powder with warm water and put it in a small bowl. Then he used a tiny spoon to drip the mixture into their mouths. At first, nothing happened. Then one of the dragons swallowed. Then the other. They were eating. "There you go," Hyun-woo said softly. "That's it, you're going to be okay." He made a nest for them in a box near the heater. He used his softest clothes to make it warm and comfortable. The dragons curled up together, their tiny bodies finally starting to warm up. As Hyun-woo watched them sleep, he realized his life had just changed forever. He was no longer alone on this frozen planet. He had two tiny lives depending on him. Outside, the storm continued to rage. But inside the station, something new was beginning. Something that would change not just Hyun-woo's life, but the fate of the galaxy itself. The mechanic had saved two baby dragons. Now he had to figure out what to do next. 3 weeks had passed since the storm. The two baby dragons were still alive, and Hyun-woo was amazed every day that they were getting stronger. He had named them Bora and Hanyul. Bora was the smaller one, with scales that sometimes turned light purple when she was happy. Hanyul was bigger and seemed to like looking up at the ceiling, as if he was dreaming of flying through the sky. They were now the size of small cats, and they followed Hyun-woo everywhere he went. When he worked on the mining machines, they sat nearby and watched with their bright silver eyes. When he ate, they begged for food like puppies. When he slept, they curled up on his chest, purring like tiny motors. "You two are getting heavy," Hyun-woo said one morning as Bora sat on his shoulder while he fixed a broken drill. "Soon you'll be too big to carry around." Bora made a soft chirping sound and rubbed her head against his cheek. Hanyul was on the floor, playing with a wrench that was almost as big as he was. The dragons were smart. Much smarter than any animal Hyun-woo had ever seen. They seemed to understand everything he said. When he pointed at something, they looked at it. When he said no, they stopped what they were doing. When he was sad or tired, they would curl up next to him and make soft, comforting sounds. But the strangest thing was how they seemed to know things about the machines. When Hyun-woo was trying to fix something, they would chirp and point at the exact part that was broken. At first, he thought it was just luck. But it happened too many times to be chance. One day, Hyun-woo was working on the main computer that controlled all the mining equipment. It had been acting strange for days, shutting down for no reason. He had checked all the usual problems, but nothing worked. Bora jumped onto the computer desk and started making excited chirping sounds. She touched one of the circuit boards with her tiny claw, and suddenly the computer screen lit up with information that Hyun-woo had never seen before. "What the hell?" he said, staring at the screen. The information was about the computer's power systems, but it was written in a way that made more sense than anything in the manual. It was like seeing the machine through new eyes. Hanyul joined his sister on the desk. He touched a different part of the computer, and more information appeared. Together, the dragons seemed to be talking to the machine, helping it work better. "You can understand these computers," Hyun-woo said, amazed. "You're not just smart, you're like mechanical engineers or something." The dragons looked at him and chirped happily as if they were pleased he finally understood. From that day on, Hyun-woo's work became much easier. The dragons would help him find problems and fix them faster than ever before. The mining station ran better than it had in months. The company would be happy with his reports, but they would never know why everything was working so well. Hyun-woo built special things for the dragons as they grew. He made them a bigger bed with heating coils to keep them warm. He created toys from spare parts, balls that rolled and made sounds, puzzles they could solve with their claws, and climbing structures they could play on. The dragons loved everything he made for them, but what they loved most was just being with him. They had become his family, and he had become theirs. One evening, as Hyun-woo was reading a book, both dragons curled up on his lap. Bora was making soft humming sounds, and her scales were glowing with a gentle light. Hanyul was drawing patterns in the air with his claw, and the patterns seemed to shimmer and sparkle. "You're not from around here, are you?" Hyun-woo said softly. "Your people must be looking for you." The dragons stopped what they were doing and looked at him. For a moment their eyes seemed sad. Then Bora touched his hand with her claw, and Hyun-woo felt something strange. It was like a picture in his mind, a beautiful world with crystal cities and dragons flying through purple skies. But then the picture changed. The cities were burning. Dragons were falling from the sky. Dark. Ships were attacking everything. The beautiful world was being destroyed. "They're gone," Hyun-woo whispered, understanding. "Your people are gone?" The dragons made soft, sad sounds. "They were orphans, just like he was?" His parents had died when he was young, and he had grown up alone. Now these dragons were alone too, but they had found each other. "It's okay," he sighed, gently petting their heads. "We'll take care of each other. We're family now." The quiet moment was broken by a sound from outside. A ship was landing near the station. Hyun-woo's heart jumped. No one was supposed to visit for another week. He quickly scooped up the dragons and carried them to his bedroom. "Stay here," he said. "Don't make any noise, okay?" The dragons seemed to understand the danger. They hid under his bed without making a sound. Hyun-woo walked to the front of the station and looked out the window. A small transport ship was sitting on the landing pad. A woman in a company uniform was walking toward the station. He recognized her. It was Gina, the supply runner who brought him food and equipment every few weeks, but she was early. Why was she here? The door chimed. Hyun-woo took a deep breath and opened it. "Hello, Gina," he said, trying to sound normal. "You're early this time." Gina was a small woman with sharp eyes and short black hair. She looked at him carefully as if she was trying to read his thoughts. "I was in the area," she said. "Thought I'd stop by and check on you. You've been ordering some strange supplies lately." Hyun-woo's stomach dropped. He had been ordering extra food, extra blankets, and materials for the things he built for the dragons. He thought no one would notice. "Just trying to stay comfortable," he said. "It gets cold out here." Gina nodded, but her eyes kept looking around the station. "Mind if I come in?" "I brought some fresh coffee." Hyun-woo couldn't say no without looking suspicious. "Sure, come in." As Gina entered the station, Hyun-woo prayed that Bora and Hanyul would stay hidden. His new family depended on it. The outside world had found them. Now everything was about to change. Gina sat at Hyun-woo's small kitchen table, drinking coffee and watching him with her sharp eyes. She had been there for an hour, and Hyun-woo was getting more nervous every minute. "You look tired," she said. "Are you sleeping okay?" "I'm fine," Hyun-woo said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Just working hard." From his bedroom, he heard a soft thump. His heart jumped. One of the dragons had probably knocked something over. He coughed loudly to cover the sound. "You sure you're okay?" Gina asked. "You seem jumpy." "Just need more coffee," Hyun-woo said, getting up to refill his cup. As he walked past his bedroom door, he heard another small sound. He had to get Gina out of here before she heard something. "Actually," he said, "I have a lot of work to do today. Maybe we can catch up next time." Gina finished her coffee slowly. "Sure, but Hyun-woo, if you need anything, you can tell me. We've known each other for 2 years. I'm not just a supply runner, I'm your friend." After Gina left, Hyun-woo rushed to his bedroom. Bora and Hanyul were sitting on his bed looking worried. They had grown again in the past few days. Bora was now the size of a small dog, and Hanyul was even bigger. "You two were very quiet," he said, petting their heads. "Thank you," but Hyun-woo knew this couldn't last. The dragons were growing fast. Soon they would be too big to hide. And Gina was suspicious. She would be watching him more carefully now, 3 days later. Everything changed. Hyun-woo was in the main work area, fixing a broken conveyor belt. Bora and Hanyul were helping him as they always did. Bora was pointing at the motor that needed to be replaced. While Hanyul was organizing the tools, suddenly all the lights in the station went out. The emergency lights came on, bathing everything. In red, an alarm started beeping. What's happening? Hyun-woo said, running to the main computer. The screen showed a message that made his blood turn cold. Corporate inspection team arriving. Prepare for full station review. A ship was landing outside. A big ship, much bigger than Gina's transport. Through the window, Hyun-woo could see people in expensive suits getting out. One of them was a tall man with gray hair and cold eyes. Director Kang, Hyun-woo whispered. He knew that name. Kang was one of the top bosses in the company. He only came to places where there were big problems or big discoveries. Hide, Hyun-woo told the dragons. Hide now, and don't come out no matter what happens. But the dragons didn't move. Instead, they made soft, worried sounds and moved closer to him. Please, Hyun-woo said. I'll be okay, but you have to hide. Laura touched his hand with her claw, and suddenly Hyun-woo could feel what she was feeling. She was scared, but not for herself. She was scared for him. Both dragons were afraid that the bad men would hurt their human friend. They won't hurt me, Hyun-woo said, but they will hurt you if they find you. Please, go hide. The dragons looked at each other, then at him. Finally, they ran toward the storage room where Hyun-woo kept spare parts and old equipment. It was the best place to hide. The door to the station opened. Director Kang walked in, followed by 3 other people in company uniforms. One of them was carrying a device that beeped and flashed with lights. Mr. Hyun-woo, Director Kang said. His voice was cold and smooth. We need to talk. Yes, sir, Hyun-woo said. Is there a problem? That depends, Kang said, looking around. The station. Our satellites have been detecting unusual energy readings from this location. Energy that doesn't match any of our equipment. The person with the device walked around the station, pointing it at different things. The device beeped loudly when it got near the storage room. Interesting, Kang said. The readings are strongest in that direction. What do you keep in there? Just spare parts and old equipment, Hyun-woo said. Nothing special. Open it, Kang ordered. Hyun-woo's hands shook as he opened the storage room door. Inside, boxes and metal parts were stacked everywhere. There was no sign of the dragons. The person with the device stepped inside and swept it around. The beeping got louder, but they couldn't find the source. The energy is definitely here, the person said. But I can't locate the exact source. Director Kang's eyes narrowed. Search everything. Take apart every box if you have to. As the team started pulling apart the storage room, Hyun-woo heard a sound that made his heart stop. It was a soft chirp, barely audible over the noise of the search. One of the searchers stopped. Did you hear that? Hear what? Kang asked. It sounded like an animal, Hyun-woo thought fast. Sometimes ice rats get into the station. They make weird sounds. Ice rats? Kang looked suspicious. Small creatures that live in the ice caves, Hyun-woo lied. They're harmless but annoying. The searcher continued looking through the boxes. Hyun-woo prayed that Bora and Hanyul would stay hidden, then disaster struck. A box fell over and tools scattered across the floor. In the mess, Hyun-woo saw a flash of white scales. Hanyul was hiding behind the fallen box, and now part of his tail was visible. The searcher with the device saw it too. What is that? Before anyone could react, Hanyul panicked. He jumped out from behind the box and ran toward the main area of the station. The corporate team saw him clearly, a white, scaled creature the size of a large dog, with silver eyes and small wings. What the hell is that thing? One of them shouted. Bora appeared from another hiding spot, running after her brother. Now both dragons were in the open, scared and confused. Director Kang stared at the dragons with wide eyes. Are those ... Are those dragons? The dragons huddled together in the corner, making frightened sounds. Their scales were glowing brighter than Hyunwoo had ever seen, and their eyes were wide with fear. "You've been hiding alien life forms," Kong said slowly. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "They're just babies," Hyunwoo said desperately. "They were hurt. I couldn't let them die." "Couldn't let them die?" Kong laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Do you know what these creatures are worth? Do you know what their technology could be worth?" The man with the device was taking readings from the dragons. "Sir, the energy readings are off the charts. These creatures are generating some kind of bioelectric field." "Capture them," Kong ordered. "Carefully. We don't want to damage them. No." Hyunwoo stepped between the corporate team and the dragons. "They're not things you can just take. They're intelligent. They have feelings." "They're alien specimens," Kong said coldly. "And you're under arrest for violating Corporate Protocol 7, contact with unregistered alien life forms." As the corporate team moved toward the dragons, something amazing happened. The dragons' scales began to glow even brighter. The lights in. The station flickered. The mining equipment outside started humming and moving on its own. "What's happening?" One of the corporate team asked. Hyunwoo realized the truth. The dragons weren't just smart. They weren't just able to understand machines. They could control them. They were speaking to every piece of technology in the station. Asking for help, the main computer screen lit up with symbols that looked like the ones from the crashed ship. The mining drills outside started moving toward the station. The conveyor belt started running in reverse. "They're controlling the machines," Hyunwoo said in wonder. Director Kong's eyes lit up with greed. "Even better. Capture them now, before they can do more damage." But as the corporate team moved forward, the dragons did something that changed everything. They looked at Hyunwoo with their silver eyes, and he felt their thoughts in his mind. They weren't just asking the machines for help. They were asking him to choose. Stay safe with the company or stand with his dragon family. Hyunwoo looked at the scared dragons, then at the greedy corporate team. His choice was easy. "I choose them," he said, and stepped forward to protect his family. The war for the dragons had begun. The mining equipment outside was going crazy. Drills were spinning without anyone controlling them. Conveyor belts were moving in circles. The sound was loud and scary. Director Kong grabbed his radio. "All teams, we have a situation. The alien creatures are controlling our machines." Hyunwoo stood in front of Bora and Hanyul, protecting them from the corporate team. The dragons were now as big as medium-sized dogs, and their scales were glowing so bright they lit up the whole room. "Stay back," Hyunwoo said. "You're scaring." They're scaring us," one of the corporate workers said. "How are they doing this?" Bora made a soft sound and touched Hyunwoo's leg with her claw. Suddenly, images filled his mind. He saw the dragon's homeworld, a beautiful place with cities made of crystal and metal that grew like living things. He saw dragons working with machines that thought and learned, machines that were alive. "Your people made living technology," Hyunwoo said to the dragons. "Machines that could think and grow." Hanyul nodded and made a musical sound. More images came into Hyunwoo's mind. He saw the dragons' people, called the Stellae, building amazing things, ships that could heal themselves, tools that adapted to any job, computers that were like friends, but then the images turned dark. Black ships filled with angry creatures attacked the dragon world. The Stellae tried to fight, but there were too many enemies. The crystal cities burned. Dragons fell from the sky. "The Void Syndicate," Hyunwoo whispered, somehow knowing the name of the attackers. "They destroyed your world." Director Kong was getting impatient. "I don't care about their history. I want those creatures captured now," he signaled to his team. They pulled out nets and stun weapons. But as they moved forward, every machine in the station started working against them. The lights went out, then came back on. The heating system started blowing cold air, then hot air. The computer screens showed warnings in the dragon language. Even the coffee machine started making angry beeping sounds. "The whole station is fighting us," one of the corporate workers said. "Because the dragons asked it to," Hyunwoo realized. "They're not just controlling the machines. They're talking to them. They're asking for help." Bora and Haniel had grown, even more in the past few weeks. They were now smart enough to have real conversations, even if it was mostly through images and feelings. They told Hanwoo their story while Director Kong's team tried to catch them. The dragons were the last. Babies born before their world was destroyed. Their parents put them in an escape pod and sent them away. The pod had traveled through space for months before crashing on the ice planet during the storm. "You're the last ones," Hyun-woo said sadly. "The last of your people." The dragons made soft, sad sounds, but then Bora showed him another image. It was the two of them, grown up and flying together. They weren't the last. They were the first of something new. Director Kong was shouting orders. "Forget the nets. Use the stun weapons. We need those creatures alive but unconscious." The corporate team raised their weapons, but before they could fire, the mining equipment outside crashed through the wall of the station. A huge drilling machine rolled into the room, its metal arms reaching for Director Kong's team. The workers jumped out of the way, screaming. "The machines are trying to kill us," one of them yelled. "No," Hyun-woo said. "They're trying to protect the dragons." The dragons told them we're family. More machines pushed through the broken wall. Conveyor belts wrapped around the corporate workers' legs. Robot arms gently but firmly pushed them toward the door. The station's computer locked all the doors except the exit. "This is impossible," Director Kong said. "Machines can't think for themselves." "These can," Hyun-woo said. "The dragons taught them how." The corporate team was forced outside by the helpful but determined machines. Their ship was surrounded by mining equipment that wouldn't let them get close, but Director Kong wasn't giving up. He got on his radio again. "This is Director Kong. I need a full security team, and contact the Galactic Council. Tell them we've found Stele survivors." Hyun-woo's blood went cold. If the Galactic Council got involved, everything would change. They had power over all the human colonies. "We have to leave," he told the dragons. "More bad people are coming." But where could they go? This was a small planet with nowhere to hide. And the dragons were still growing. Soon they would be too big to hide anywhere. Bora touched his hand again. This time she showed him a memory from her parents. There was a place in space where refugees could go. A safe zone protected by good people who helped those in trouble. "The Haven Sector," Hyun-woo said, understanding. "Your parents told you about it." 3 days later, a new ship arrived. It wasn't a corporate ship. It was black and covered with weapons. When it landed, creatures in dark armor got out. They looked like giant insects with too many arms and cold, mean eyes. Director Kong met them outside the station. "They're in there. 2 Stele juveniles and a human who's protecting them." The leader of the alien soldiers was huge and scary. His name was Commander Vex, and he had metal parts attached to his body. When he spoke, his voice sounded like grinding metal. "The Stele must not be allowed to survive," he said. "Their technology is too dangerous." "We want them alive," Director Kong said. "They're worth more alive than dead." "You do not understand," Commander Vex said. "These are not just any Stele. According to our readings, they are a breeding pair. If they survive and reproduce, the Stele race will return. We cannot allow this." Inside the station, Hyun-woo was packing supplies. The dragons were bigger now, almost the size of ponies. Their wings were starting to grow strong enough for short flights. "We're going to have to run," he told them, "but I don't know how. That ship out there is too fast and too strong." Haniel made a musical sound and showed Hyun-woo an image. It was the crashed escape pod where he had found them. There were parts in that wreckage that could be used to build something new. "You want to build a ship?" Hyun-woo said. "But I don't know how to build spaceships." Bora chirped and showed him more images. Dragons and humans working together. Human creativity and dragon knowledge making something better than either could make alone. "You'll teach me," Hyun-woo said. "We'll figure it out together. But first, they had to survive." Commander Vex's soldiers were surrounding the station. Soon they would attack. The door to the station opened. A woman in a company uniform walked in. It was Gina. "Don't shoot," she said quickly. I'm here to help. Hyun-woo stared at her. Gina, what are you doing here? I've been watching the corporate communications, she said. I know what they want to do to your dragons. And I know what those alien soldiers want to do to all of you. She looked at Bora and Hanuel, who were watching her carefully. I also know that you saved these creatures because it was the right thing to do. That takes courage. Why are you helping us? Hanuel asked. Gina smiled sadly. Because the company I work for has become evil. And because someone needs to stand up for what's right? She pulled out a bag of supplies. I brought food, medical equipment, and tools. We're going to have to fight our way out of here. Outside, Commander Vex's voice boomed through a speaker. Human, surrender the stelae, and you will be allowed to live. Refuse, and we will take them from your dead body. Han-woo looked at his dragon family, then at Gina. How do we fight soldiers and spaceships? Bora and Hanuel looked at each other, then at the mining equipment around them. Their scales began to glow. We don't fight them, Hyun-woo realized. We turn this whole planet into our weapon. The hunt had begun. But the hunters had no idea what they were really up against. Bora and Hanuel pressed their claws against the main computer of the mining station. Their scales glowed brighter than ever before, and the whole building started to hum with energy. What are they doing? Gina asked, watching in amazement. They're talking to every machine on this planet, Hyun-woo said. All the mining equipment, all the computers, everything. Outside, Commander Vex's soldiers were getting ready to attack. They had big guns and metal armor. They thought they were fighting one human and 2 young dragons. They were wrong. The ground started to shake. Deep under the ice, huge mining machines began to move. These were the big diggers that could cut through solid rock. They had been sleeping in the underground tunnels, but now the dragons were waking them up. Sir, one of Vex's soldiers said, the ground is moving. Commander Vex looked around. Cracks were appearing in the ice. Metal shapes were rising up from below. What is this? The first machine that broke through the surface was as big as a building. It was a tunnel borer designed to dig through mountains. Its spinning drill head could cut through anything. But now, instead of drilling down, it was pointing at the alien soldiers. More machines came up from the tunnels. Rock crushers or haulers and massive excavators. All of them were moving toward the station, ready to protect the dragons. Impossible, Director Kong said. Those machines don't have weapons. They don't need weapons, Hyun-woo said. They are weapons. Inside the station, Bora touched Hyun-woo's hand. Images flowed into his mind. She was showing him how her people had built their technology. It wasn't just metal and circuits. It was alive, able to grow and change. You want to teach me, Hyun-woo said. You want to show me how to make living metal. Hanuel joined his sister, pressing his claw against Hyun-woo's other hand. More knowledge flowed through. Hyun-woo saw how to make metal that could heal itself. How to build machines that could think and feel. This is amazing, he whispered. Your people were incredible engineers. The dragons made soft, happy sounds. They were sharing their most precious gift, the knowledge of their ancestors. Gina was watching the screens that showed the outside. Hyun-woo, you need to see this. The mining machines had surrounded Commander Vex's ship. They weren't attacking yet, but they were ready. Drill heads spun slowly. Rock crushers opened and closed their huge jaws, and excavator arms moved like the legs of giant spiders. This is your last warning, Commander Vex's voice came through the radio. Surrender the stelae or we will destroy everything. Tell him no, Hyun-woo said. Gina picked up the radio. This is Mining Station 7. The dragons are under our protection. If you want them, you'll have to go through us. So be it, Commander. Vex said. The alien ship started firing. Bright energy beams shot down at the mining machines. The beams were powerful enough to melt metal, but something strange happened. Where the beams hit the machines, the metal didn't melt. Instead, it seemed to drink in the energy and grow stronger. The machines were healing themselves and becoming bigger. How is that possible? One of Vex's soldiers asked. Hyun-woo was watching through the station's cameras. The dragons taught the machines how to use the enemy's energy. They're turning their attacks into food. The mining machines began to fight back. But they didn't have energy weapons like the alien ship. Instead, they used what they were built for. A tunnel borer shot a stream of compressed air and ice chunks at the ship. An ore hauler threw huge rocks with perfect aim. A rock crusher grabbed pieces of broken metal and hurled them like spears. Primitive weapons? Commander Vex sneered. They cannot hurt us, but the dragons had more surprises. Deep underground, the main mining computer was connected to every machine on the planet. Bora and Haniel were using it to coordinate everything. Suddenly, all the machines moved at once. They formed a perfect circle around the alien ship. Then they all activated their tools at the same time. Drill heads created a wall of spinning metal. Rock crushers made a deafening noise that shook the ship. Excavators dug trenches that made it impossible for the ship to land anywhere safe. They're working together, Gina said in amazement. Like a hive mind. No, Hyanwu said, understanding better now. Like a family, the dragons asked them to protect us, and they said yes. Commander Vex tried to fly his ship higher, out of reach of the mining machines. But the dragons had planned for that too, hidden launch tubes that were usually used to send ore samples to orbiting ships suddenly activated. But instead of ore samples, they shot cables and nets. The ship was caught like a fish in a net. Bring us down, Vex ordered his pilot. We'll fight them on the ground. The ship landed hard, its engines damaged by the cables. Alien soldiers poured out, firing their weapons at everything that moved, but the mining machines were too big and too strong. Their metal skin was too thick for the alien weapons. And now that the dragons had taught them to absorb energy, every shot just made them stronger. One by one, the alien soldiers were captured. Not killed. The dragons didn't want to hurt anyone if they didn't have to. The machines just wrapped them up in cables and held them still. Commander Vex was the last one standing. He had more metal parts than the others, and his weapons were bigger. He kept firing at the machines, screaming in anger. You cannot defeat the Void Syndicate. We will keep coming until every stele is dead. That's when something new happened. Bora and Haniel walked out of the station. They were bigger now, almost the size of small horses. Their wings were strong enough to lift them off the ground. Commander Vex pointed his biggest weapon at them. Finally! I'll finish what we started on your homeworld. But before he could fire, every machine on the planet made the same sound at the same time. It was like a roar, but also like music. It was the sound of a world saying no to evil. The sound was so loud and so deep that it shook Vex's metal parts. Loose, his weapon fell apart in his hands. His armor cracked and broke. Without his machines, he was just a scared creature in a broken suit. Impossible, he whispered. How can dead metal fight back? Bora flew over to him. She was beautiful, and terrible at the same time, glowing with power. When she spoke, her voice was clear and strong. Metal is not dead when it has friends, she said in perfect human language. Our human family taught us about friendship. We taught the machines. Now we are all family. Haniel landed next to his sister. You destroyed our old world, he said to Vex. But you cannot destroy our new family. The alien soldiers and their broken commander were loaded onto their damaged ship. The mining machines had fixed just enough of it to fly, but not enough to fight. Leave, Bora told them. Tell the Void Syndicate that the Stelae have new friends. Now tell them that humans do not abandon their family. As the alien ship limped away into space, Hyanwu walked out to join the dragons. Gina was with him, and so were 3 other people who had arrived during the battle. One was Taemin, a security officer who had come to arrest Hyanwu but stayed to help fight. Another was Sujin, a scientist who wanted to study the dragons, but ended up becoming their friend. The third was Minho, a company worker who had quit his job to join them. So what happens now? Gina asked. Bora and Haniel looked at each other, then at their human friends. Their scales shimmered with new colors as they shared another vision. They showed a future where humans and dragons worked together to build amazing things. Cities that could fly through space. Ships that could heal themselves. tools that were alive and helpful, but most importantly, they showed safe places where any creature in trouble could find help, places where refugees could live without fear. We build something new, Haiyan-Wu said, together. The mining station was just the beginning. Soon it would become the first haven, a place where the lost and frightened could find safety, and it all started because one human mechanic couldn't leave two baby dragons to freeze in a storm. 1 year had passed since the battle with Commander Vex. The mining station looked completely different now. Where there had once been a small, cold building, there was now a beautiful complex of connected structures that seemed to grow from the ice itself. Bora and Haniel were no longer small dragons. They were magnificent creatures, each the size of a small shuttle, with wings that could carry them through the atmosphere. Their white scales had developed patterns of silver and blue that shifted like living art. But the most amazing change was in their eyes. They looked at the world with ancient wisdom, but also with the joy of young creatures who had found their place in the universe. "The new refugees will arrive tomorrow," Gina said, reading from her tablet. She was now the station manager, helping coordinate the growing community. Haiyan-Wu nodded as he worked on a new type of machine. It was unlike anything humans had built before, part metal, part living tissue, with circuits that could think and adapt. The dragons had taught him how to make technology that was alive. "How many this time?" he asked. 15 families, Gina said. "They're from the Kesh system. The Void Syndicate destroyed their homeworld last month." Haiyan-Wu's hands tightened on his tools. Even after a year, it still made him angry to hear about the Syndicate's attacks. But now, at least, they could do something to help. Taemin walked into the workshop. The former security officer was now head of Haven Defense. "The transport ship just sent a message. They'll be here in 8 hours. Are the new quarters ready?" Haiyan-Wu asked. "Sujin finished the biohomes yesterday," Taemin said. "They'll adapt to whatever the refugees need, the right temperature, the right atmosphere, even the right kind of food." The biohomes were one of the most amazing things they had built. Using dragon knowledge and human creativity, they had made buildings that were alive. The walls could change color to make people feel happy. The floors could become soft or hard depending on what was needed. The ceilings could even make it rain inside if someone missed their rainy homeworld. Minho came running in, excitement on his face. "You have to see this. The dragons have done something incredible." They all followed him outside. There, in the main courtyard, Bora and Haniel were working together on something new. Their claws moved in perfect harmony as they shaped metal and crystal into beautiful forms, but they weren't alone. Around them, tiny dragons no bigger than Haiyan-Wu's hand were helping with the work. They had the same white scales and silver eyes as their parents, but their movements were full of playful energy. "They're babies," Sujin whispered in amazement. She had arrived 6 months ago as a researcher, but had become part of the family. "When did this happen?" "Last week," Bora said, her voice now deep and musical. "We did not tell you because we wanted to be sure they were healthy. But this is impossible," Sujin said. "You're both from the same clutch. In most species, siblings can't." "We are not siblings," Haniel said gently. "We thought we were. But when we grew up, we learned the truth. Our parents sent us here together because we were already bonded mates." The tiny dragons, there were 5 of them, chirped and played around their parents' feet. One of them tried to fly but only managed to hop a few inches off the ground. Another was trying to eat a piece of metal, thinking it was food. "The Stele race lives again," Bora said proudly. "Our children will grow up knowing both dragon wisdom and human kindness." Haiyan-Wu felt tears in his eyes. When he had found those 2 freezing babies in the storm, he never imagined it would lead to this. The last dragons weren't the last anymore. A new voice spoke from behind them. "And that is exactly why you must be stopped." Everyone turned. Standing at the edge of the courtyard was a tall woman in the blue uniform of the Galactic Council. She had cold eyes and a stern face. Behind her were 6 council guards in full armor. "I am Council Representative Park," she said. "You are all under arrest for violations of the Galactic Species Protection Act. What violations? Gina asked angrily. We're protecting refugees, not hurting them. You are harboring stellae without council permission, Representative Park said. You are sharing restricted technology with humans, and you are building unauthorized weapons. These aren't weapons, Haiyan Wu said, gesturing at the living buildings. Around them, their homes, their tools to help people. Technology that can think is dangerous, Park said. The council has decided that all stellae survivors must be placed in protective custody. For the safety of the galaxy, protective custody? Bora's voice was sharp with anger. You mean prison? A comfortable prison, Park admitted. But yes, your people are too dangerous to be free. The baby dragons sensed the tension and huddled closer to their parents. The smallest one made a scared chirping sound. And what about our children? Haniel asked quietly. They will be raised by council scientists, Park said. They will be taught to control their abilities properly. That was too much for Haiyan Wu. No, absolutely not. You're not taking these babies away from their parents. You have no choice in this matter, Park said. The council's decision is final. The council guards raised their weapons. But before they could fire, something amazing happened. Every refugee in the haven came running. The Kesh survivors who had arrived that morning, the crystal beings from the Andrus sector, the plant people from Verdania, the rock creatures from the core worlds. Dozens of different species, all united in one purpose. These humans saved us, said Kala, an elderly Kesh woman. When our world burned, they gave us new homes. The dragons healed my son, said a crystal, being whose name was like musical notes. When the syndicate's poison was killing him, dragon medicine saved his life. We will not let you take our friends, said the leader of the rock creatures. His voice like grinding stone, Representative Park looked around at the crowd of refugees. You cannot stop the council. We have the law on our side. And we have something better, Haiyan Wu said. We have family. Bora and Haniel looked at each other, then at their human friends, then at all the refugees they had helped. The baby dragons stopped being scared and started chirping happily. We choose to stay with our human family, Bora announced. We choose to help refugees instead of hiding in council safety. The law says we must come with you, Haniel added. But there is a higher law, the law of kindness. The law of protecting those who need help. Representative Park's face turned red with anger. This is rebellion. The council will send ships to force you to comply. Let them come, Temin said. He wasn't the only human speaking. All the Haven staff had gathered around their dragon friends. We'll be ready. You cannot fight the council, Park warned. They have 100,000 ships. We don't want to fight anyone, Haiyan Wu said. But we won't abandon our family. And we won't stop helping people who need help. The tiny dragons had crawled over to Representative Park's feet. They looked up at her with curious silver eyes, making soft, happy sounds. One of them tried to play with her shoelace. For a moment, Park's stern expression softened. She looked down at the baby dragon, and something changed in her eyes. They're just children, she whispered. Yes, Bora said gently. Children who will grow up learning that different species can be friends. Children who will help build a better galaxy. Representative Park stood there for a long moment. Looking around at the haven, she saw the beautiful buildings that could adapt to any species' needs. She saw refugees from a dozen worlds living together in peace. She saw humans and dragons, working side by side to help others. Finally, she spoke. The council sent me here to arrest you. But the council doesn't understand what you've really built here. She turned to her guards. Stand down, we're leaving. Ma'am? One of the guards asked, confused. You heard me, Park said. We're leaving. And we're going to tell the council that we found no evidence of dangerous activities here. As the council ship left, Haiyan Wu picked up one of the baby dragons. It was warm and soft, and it purred like a tiny engine. What happens now? He asked Bora and Haniel. Now we build more havens, Bora said. We help more refugees. We show the galaxy that different species can work together. And we raise our children to be both dragon and human, Haniel. added, "They will carry the best of both peoples." Sujin was already making plans. "We can build ships using living metal technology. Mobile havens that can reach refugees faster. And we can teach other humans how to work with dragon technology," Minho said excitedly. "Imagine what we could accomplish." As the sun set over the ice planet that had become home to so many different creatures, Henwu thought about that night in the storm. When he had found 2 freezing baby dragons, he had saved them because it was the right thing to do. He never expected them to save him back. He never expected them to save so many others, but that was the thing about kindness. It grew, it spread. It brought out the best in everyone it touched. The dragons had given humans amazing technology. But humans had given the dragons something even more valuable, the knowledge. That family wasn't about being the same species. Family was about caring for each other. And now that family was growing. Soon there would be havens throughout the galaxy, places where anyone in trouble could find help. Places where humans and dragons and dozens of other species would work together to build something better. It all started with one human mechanic who couldn't walk away from creatures in need. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness change everything. The baby dragons chirped and played in the courtyard while their parents watched with loving eyes. Above them, the stars shone down on a galaxy that was about to become a much kinder place. All because of a storm. 2 baby dragons and 1 human who chose to care.